The year is 2021 and the golf landscape is changing. A new competitor enters the fray and sets eyes on the one atop the food chain. Only a year later, this new competitor is even more brazen and isn't afraid to bare its teeth at the old guard. Several loyalists to the latter begin defecting to the new competitor's side. The offers are better, as is the flexibility. The old guard stands and watches, dumbfounded. The day is the 9th of June 2022. The new competitor gives the defectors free rein. For the first time, the old guard growls and bares its teeth, telling off the defectors as tainted and to never come back. Tensions are high, and both sides look out for blood. However, loyalists of the old guard continue to defect. To protect its new followers, the new competitor points a finger, and all eyes turn to the old guard. Followers on both sides wait with bated breath. A clash is inevitable now. The old guard and the new competitor approach each other, teeth bared, claws primed, closer, closer, until they can feel the other's breath on their face and their eyes lock in a furious dance, daring the other to back down. And then, like a bolt from the blue, they shake hands. Quiet. What? The new competitor. You'd think that a competitor capable of forcing the PGA into a stalemate would have some storied history. Nope, not LIV Golf. The Saudi-backed outfit came to life in 2021 under the management of Greg Norman, an ex-golfer who played on the PGA Tour. It really do be your own people. LIV Golf hit the ground running thanks to backing from the bottomless wealth of the Public Investment Fund, a Saudi sovereign wealth fund. With more money than it knew what to do with, the new entrant into the golf scene has more than enough dough to turn heads. And more than a few heads were turned, including key stars from the PGA Tour like Brooks Koepka, Phil Mickelson, and Jon Rahm, to name a few. The promise of guaranteed payouts and huge wins that surpassed anything they could hope to earn on the more historic PGA Tour meant more pro golfers had to fight the allure of a better payday. Even better, LIV brought a breath of fresh air to the otherwise traditional system of golf embraced by the PGA Tour. Even its name was unusual. Rather than go with an acronym, it simply slapped on a Roman numeral and pronounced it as a word that rhymes with give. LIV translates to 54 for the number of holes played per tournament. Another different side to the Saudi project was that tournaments only lasted 3 days, and the rules for dress-coded and team competitions were more lax. In fact, there was music at its events. But perhaps the biggest appeal for most pro golfers was that LIV didn't cut anyone after 2 bad rounds like the PGA Tour. The Old Guard. The PGA Tour is an organization steeped in history. Its hold on golf extends beyond the shores of the United States to several other countries on different continents, including Asia and Europe. Its prize pools are in the millions of dollars, and it's consistently been home to the most prolific golfers to ever play the game, like Tiger Woods, Jack Nicklaus, and Arnold Palmer. Finally, the PGA Tour also has a working relationship with the agencies in charge of the 4 majors in the men's division, including the British Open, PGA Championship, the US Open, and the Masters Tournament. Teeth bared. If Tyler Perry made an acrimony movie for corporations, it would feature LIV Golf and the PGA Tour. The latter and its European counterpart, the DP World Tour, threatened to fine and suspend golfers who signed up for LIV Golf. This resulted in many stars defecting entirely. This provoked a lawsuit from LIV, but the PGA Tour wasn't all bark and no bite, so a countersuit was issued. The matter is still technically in court, although both sides have since entered a merger. For a little over 3 years now, both sides have fought for dominance on the professional golf scene. It's been the biggest, most consistent news in the sport since Tiger Woods first remade golf in his image some 30 years ago. The limitless wealth of LIV Golf allowed it to significantly disrupt the golf landscape, throwing money around to lure players. In the end, all it really created was a toxic void that divided the fan base and players. Finally, there's the controversy surrounding the Saudi-backed project, as critics have labeled their latest foray into golf as a sports-washing effort. That means they see the Saudi involvement as a ploy to turn attention away from the atrocities perpetuated in their countries. A handshake? If the whole scenario with both golf bodies already seems precarious and a no-brainer, you'd be surprised what they do next. On the 6th of June 2023, LIV Golf and the PGA Tour met to form a merger that combined their assets, including those of the DP World Tour. This represented a major change in how the sport is run. The terms of the arrangement ensure that the PGA Tour remains a non-profit entity, while still maintaining absolute control over its tournaments and how they are played. Additionally, all the commercial business and rights of the PGA Tour, including its ridiculously lucrative TV rights, would be placed under new management, NewCos, a third-party for-profit entity. NewCo will also be given the commercial and business rights of LIV Golf and the DP World Tour. The board running the new for-profit entity, NewCo, would be spearheaded by the governor of the Public Investment Fund, who also happens to oversee the running of LIV Golf. Other members of the board would typically include members of the current PGA Tour's board. What are the terms? Besides what I already covered, the terms of the deal are rather scant. It doesn't look like the PGA Tour has gone all in with the Saudi-backed project. As a result, there are only a few binding commitments in the merger, like a pledge to dismiss acrimonious litigation and a non-disparagement agreement, so we can expect that both sides will make an effort to withdraw their legal actions. A key point that the merger fails to discuss is exactly how future events might be played, but that's not surprising considering the limited framework and the fact that the most important future details are being ignored or swept under the rug. But more importantly, both organizations must reach a consensus on how they value the assets that they both contribute to the partnership. Of course, professionals, lawyers, and bankers were brought in for the valuation process. Finally, both parties reached the unanimous decision to scrap the issue of non-solicitation clauses. The original agreement had this clause, which effectively meant that neither side could enter into any contract, agreement, or understanding with any players who are members of the other's tour or organization. Given this clause already worsened things before the merger was brokered, both sides didn't exactly agree to this clause out of the goodness of their hearts. Instead, it comes down to pressure from the Justice Department. That doesn't make sense. If you think the details are rather porous and non-committal for such a crucial development, well, you aren't alone. When asked, LIV Golf representative Monahan simply said, "Listen, circumstances change, and they've been changing a lot over the last couple years." Ambiguous much? He went on to add, "What changed? I looked at where we were at that point in time, and it was the right point in time to have a conversation." Reading between the lines of Monahan's vague responses makes it sound like the primary motivation for the merger was money and competition. If it were, that would neither be new nor surprising. Because despite acting unbothered by the presence of the Saudi-backed project, the PGA Tour has actively worked to keep its stars by improving financial takeaways, upping financial support for the DP World Tour, and filing expensive cutthroat shits against LIV Golf. In Monahan's words, "We've had to invest back in our business through our reserves." He also said the ability to take the competitor off of the board while retaining control was significant. Rival camps, defectors, and loyalists. The general sentiment among golfers pitching their tent with LIV is that they won the war, and there is some sense to it. The result of opting for a mega payday is no longer a forfeiture of your career on the biggest global tour. They have eaten their cakes and had them back. Mickelson, one of the first PGA stars to defect, took to social media to express his thoughts about the merger, describing it as an awesome day today. His cohort, Koepka, was less positive and more daring, taking a jab at anti-LIV TV commentator and ex-player, Brandel Chambly. On the other side of the fence, PGA Tour players weren't as ecstatic, and for good reasons too. The news had blindsided a lot of them, and they were learning they were suddenly at peace with their supposed enemies at the same time as everyone else. Worse still, they couldn't comprehend why the PGA Tour had gone through the trouble of waging a morality war against the Saudi-backed project if they were going to get in bed with the monstrosity it created anyway. Monahan revealed to reporters after meeting with some golfers at the Canadian Open in Toronto that the exchange was intense, certainly heated. The Golf Channel was also getting its fair share of the ensuing media frenzy when one of the PGA Tour players, Johnson Wagner, went in the air to disclose that some players at the meeting demanded that Monahan resign. In his words, there were many moments where certain players were calling for new leadership of the PGA Tour, and even got a couple standing ovations. I think the most powerful moment was when a player quoted Commissioner Monahan from the 3M Open in Minnesota last year when he said, "As long as I'm commissioner of the PGA Tour, no player that took LIV money will ever play the PGA Tour again." Wagner suggested that up to 90% of the golfers in attendance opposed the merger. One of the PGA Tour's most influential players besides Tiger Woods, McIlroy, also got involved, describing his position on the merger as reluctantly in favor of the agreement. According to McIlroy, Saudi influence in golf, especially financially, is something he's come to expect. In his words, "Honestly, I've just resigned myself to the fact that this is what's going to happen." Will the old guard dominate forever? That's unlikely. Why? Because a near unlimited source of wealth makes a lot of things possible. The PGA Tour went from opposing the very existence of LIV Golf to signing a merger the majority of its members opposed. The governor of the Public Investment Fund has promised investments in the billions into the newfound for-profit entity, and per the agreement, it will also hold the exclusive right to further invest in the new entity, including a right of first refusal on any capital that may be invested in the new entity, including into the PGA Tour, LIV Golf, and DP World Tour. Rest assured, if the Public Investment Fund sinks billions into this merger, the terms will mature out of their ambiguity and non-committal nature. They will demand more representation and voting privileges for their financial offerings, and they shall get it, further skewing the control of men's professional golf in their favor. Paper beats rock, always. That's the end of the video, guys. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And as always, I'll catch you in the next video.